Hey gang, this is Masad Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hi, and welcome to the Polite Society Podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. We're recording this one on Monday, March the 2nd, 2020. I'm Paul Lathram.
I'm Rob Morse. And on tonight's show, we'll talk about 18 states' attorney general who took Illinois to court because Illinois has such a restrictive reciprocity agreement for carry permits.
I'm Amanda Suffolk, and we will talk with Holly Sullivan of the CCDL, Connecticut Citizens Defense League, about the hefty ammo tax being considered for the nutmeg state.
I'm Amy Dillon, and in one of our DGU stories, a 9mm handgun beats an AK-47.
I'm Jerry Doherty, and in another art of our DGU, a rifle stops home invasion. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 533 of the Polite Society Podcast starts right now. Hey, we're back, and we're back to our normal Monday recording schedule. Rob, what have you been up to since the last time we talked, man?
I just got off Bill Frady's Lock and Load radio program. Boy, is everybody in the 2A community, we're all barely healthy from what I can tell. I recorded another episode of Self-Defense Gun Stories with our friend of the show, Ben Branham. I realized he and I have we've just both entered our 5th season of podcasting. Carried, dry practiced, exercised. I may have found another shooting buddy who shoots IDPA. So that's good for me. Gary, how about you?
That's great news. That's really good. It's always easier to go with a friend.
Yep.
I know when I used to work out regularly at the gym, it was always more motivating to have someone else with me and keeping an eye on me and commenting on mistakes and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, otherwise, not much happening here. Carrying every day. Of course, we talked last week about the $1 million insurance policy for FOID card holders, and I talked with a FOID card holder, a friend of mine, who doesn't own a firearm. And, yes, they were a little stunned. So, not much else. Amy?
Well, I'm currently recovering from the flu, but not coronavirus. But that's pretty much it. I was in Orlando last week. I ran a 5K race, and as a result of that, I think I just got really sick, and I've been kind of dealing with that this past week. So, but I'm glad to be on the show tonight because I've missed the last few recordings. But I think Amanda's next.
Yeah, I think I am too, because Dana, who should be between you and I, is somewhere flying over the United States right now. But I was at CPAC until late Saturday, early Sunday, and it was amazing. I've never been before. I strongly recommend it. If that is your political persuasion, I strongly recommend it. And I did a short interview with Cam Edwards of now Bearing Arms.
Wow.
Very
so,
cool.
Paul?
He's got quite the beard going. I know it's in support of his wife. She's got some issues, and he's growing the beard to support her. But, man, I couldn't. Well, maybe I could grow a beard that fast, but Susan would, be chasing me down, maybe even attacking me in my sleep with a scissors. She won't let it get much longer than it is right now. For me, Susan has been really busy doing some planning, and we've got AmCon. She just this evening got AmCon registration up. So if you are a member of Second Amendment Media and you want to join us when we are in Orlando this September, go ahead and head over to the AmCon page on Facebook. There's a link there, and you can sign up. We only have room for 100 people again this year. And the website, amcon.org, will be updated the next couple days, but she was doing it as we were getting ready to go on the air, and Monty needs the computer to do the to do his work here. So that's what she's been up to. I did a really short trip to Wisconsin and back, so my normal 3,000-mile week, I got a whole 1,000 miles in. So it's going to be a short paycheck for me next week. Let's see, what else? That I got covered, and I think it's time to go public with something. I've been kicking this around ever since, well, late September last year. The entire team is going to be flying to Orlando to do Gun Rights Policy Conference and AmCon. And I hate flying. I hate flying with a passion. I would fly if I could have control of the aircraft, but they don't let somebody without a pilot's license do that. So I've decided to combine something I love doing with a little bit of fundraising. This coming September, I'm going to be doing a charity ride. I'm going to be raising money for the Second Amendment Foundation. I'm going to ride an ancient, well, not quite ancient, it's not as old as I am, 1982 Honda Goldwing from Sioux Falls to Orlando. And it's going to happen one of two ways. I'm either going to do a one-shot ride and try raising money by having people contribute X amount of cents per mile for the ride. All the proceeds go to the Second Amendment Foundation. Or I'm going to break it up into a 4 or 5 day ride, and you'll pay X amount to go along the ride, and you'll get a t-shirt, and we'll sell t-shirts along the way, and we'll do little mini rallies every night at the stops. I just haven't decided which way it's going to happen, but I have decided for sure that I am going to ride motorcycle down to Orlando. I am not going to get felt up by the TSA one more time. So,
Paul, I got to know, how many miles is it?
It is from it's just a little over. It's 1,630 miles. So it would happen the way it would happen if I do the one-shot deal. It would actually be 2 days. It would be from here to just north of Atlanta, where our friends from the Complete Combatant, Shelley and Brian Hill, live, and they've offered to bunk me for a night. It'd be one 24-hour period would be 1,167 miles, and then it would be 500 the next day to Orlando. And I don't know which way it's going to happen yet. Depends on which one has more interest, really. And so I kind of want to ask the listeners, if you would, my email address, not the on-air one, but my email address is paul@politicsandguns. If you hear this and you ride motorcycle and you're somewhere on the route from Sioux Falls to Orlando, Florida, and you'd be willing to chip in a couple bucks to the SAF and go along for the ride, let me know. I'll do it solo if I have to, but what I would love to have happen is for 20 or 30 riders to show up the day before this all kicks off down in Orlando. Just all of us roll up to the hotel. I think that would just be super cool. And then, of course, I want to present a big-ass check to the SAF. So, Monty, you're the one person on the staff that, because I don't have you in show notes yet, I kind of skipped you over. What's been up with you since the last time we recorded?
My life is really boring compared to everybody else here. I've been going to the gym about 4 times a week and trying to get in shape, put on 10 pounds when I should be coming off, but yeah, I've done nothing this week.
Okay. All right. Well, before we head off to break, I would like to recommend everybody please go to the Self-Defense Radio Network website, sdrn.us. If you go there, you're going to see, and you can see up on for those of you watching on video right now, you can see We've got 12 shows, soon to become a lot more. We've got a couple in the hopper just waiting to come on the network. But we've got shows like Self-Defense Gun Stories, Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns, Eye on the Target Radio, Gun Freedom Radio, Unload and Show Clear, all kinds of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. And I'm not wearing my Riding Shotgun with Charlie t-shirt tonight. Sorry, Charlie. But lots of great shows on the network. You can click on any of the links for the shows, and you can, as you can see here, there we are. There's how you subscribe, and you've even got our shows off there to the right. You can just click, and bang, your episode opens right up. You can listen right there, or you can subscribe. So if you would, please go to sdrn.us. Check out the other shows on the network. We greatly appreciate it. We are going to step aside to break. When we come back, we've got our interview with Holly Sullivan of Connecticut Citizens Defense League. We'll get to that right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Givens, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by Network President Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
All right, we are live. We're back. I'm going to have to do an extended introduction here because our guest, Holly Sullivan, is having some technical issues and has walked away from the camera. So it's live, folks. You get what you get. We're going to be talking here as soon as she comes back with Holly Sullivan. She is the president of the Connecticut Connecticut Citizens Defense League. They've got House Bill 5040 that is up for consideration in the legislature right now. It's in committee, and what that would do is put a 35% additional tax on ammo. And I was watching a video that she shared with me. She testified in front of the legislature, and I was watching that video, and there were 2 people that asked her questions after her presentation. And one of them has a D after their name. And she was like, well, I can't see why you don't support this and that. Don't you want violence to go down? And is there any way you could support something like this? Holly, can you hear us? Are you there?
I think I can hear you now. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You'll need to.
Perfect.
You'll need
to.
We
fixed it.
Okay. You need to be nice and close to your computer so the microphone picks you up, though. Okay.
There you go.
All right. So I was just telling everybody about the video that that you shared with me that is up on Facebook at the CCDL Facebook page. Yeah. And that the person that was questioning you after your presentation, the first person, she just didn't seem to get it that it's not fair for somebody that's not causing any of the problems to be paying all of the money for solutions that aren't going to work.
Right. So that was one of our representatives. Her name is Mashinsky. She's been up there for, I want to say a couple decades. And she's a longtime legislator. And it's really hard to have this conversation across the aisle and just say, guys, like, they're just not getting it. Unfortunately, in the state of Connecticut, we have seen an onslaught of legislation since Sandy Hook. And like one of the other legislators said afterwards, they tend to have like a 1-year cycle. They forget that they've passed legislation in years past, and they don't even look to see, is it working? So every single year we have more laws that are claiming to fix the problem, and they're going to do something about it. But year after year we come back and it's just more restrictions on gun owners, but they're never going back to look at the laws they passed the prior year or actually accomplishing anything.
So for those of us who did not see the video, tell everybody where they can find the video so they can see it, and then what was the exchange? Fill us in on how that exchange went.
Sure. So essentially what happened, so this bill, the way that it works with a finance bill is it's HB 5040. And this bill is proposed by a representative out of a pretty affluent area in the town of West Hartford. It's one of the nicest areas in the state of Connecticut. And she's proposing they put a 35% ammo tax on ammunition. Now, mind you, in Connecticut, we already have a 6.35% sales tax. And then, of course, as we know, Robertson-Pittman Act, we all pay taxes on ammunition from the get-go, 10 or 11% respectively. I apologize. My dog, who normally doesn't ever get on the couch, has decided he has to be here right now. So at any rate, so this one representative, Representative Jillian Gilchrist, she's proposing that we have an additional 35% ammo tax. Now, mind you, last year she tried to push that at 50% and it failed at 50%. So now she's scaled that back to 35%. And can you not? So here we are. So what they, essentially what they want to do is they want to take this tax revenue and fund what they call evidence-based programs that are solving gun violence in inner cities. However, the names of these organizations, to the best of my knowledge, we've not seen them, and we don't have any kind of statistical evidence that they're making change or that what they're doing is justifiable in any way, shape, or form to excuse taxpayer money going to fund them. And that's concerning. I think, if you look at other organizations, obviously, what is he doing? Of course, we know that there's organizations like Eddie Eagle and Faster Saves Lives and Safe Kids Foundation. And these are organizations that we see time after time are doing things to teach children to stay away from firearms or have safe handling skills, all of these different things. We don't necessarily know where this money is going to go, exactly what organizations they'd be going to. And for it to ride on the backs of gun owners, she actually said that the reason why criminals have access to firearms is because of law-abiding gun owners. So that's
wow.
That's so out of touch with what's going on. I mean, obviously we know that thefts happen, right? Firearms are stolen and then later used in crimes. We know that there's straw purchases. Those are not law-abiding gun owners, so don't lump us in with them. So
no, but that seems to be a typical statement that you get, that the law abiding, if we didn't own a gun, then someone bad couldn't steal it. And then that's kind of where their justification is. So inadvertently, because you buy something and lock it up in your house and someone else comes in and breaks in and takes it, you're the accomplice, because if you didn't have it, they wouldn't want it.
And what's super interesting about that, Amanda, is last year they passed this the vehicle safe storage law. So in the state of Connecticut, you can't leave your firearm in your car unless it's in a safe. And the safe doesn't have to be anchored to the vehicle or anything like that. But let's say I'm going to go to the post office and I'm going to park in the next parking lot over. I need to take my firearm off and leave it in the vehicle. It has to be in a safe if you're going to leave it in your vehicle. So the interesting part about that is the minority party in our state, and you can guess which party is the minority party in the state of Connecticut, they actually offered up an amendment. And they said, okay, fair enough. If you're going to make gun owners lock up their firearms in a safe in a vehicle, at least make the penalty harsher on the thief that steals the gun than the gun owner whose car got broken into. And the amendment failed. It is harsher on a gun owner. You are going to lose your permit. You'll never get it back. You'll never be a gun owner again. and your penalties are harsher than the thief that breaks into your car and takes your gun.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, it's not crazy. It's bigotry.
Well, is that? Sorry.
Oh no, Holly. Here's the thing that kind of drives me crazy about this whole line of argument. You and I know that guns save lives. They're one of the most cost-effective ways to do so, unless you're Mike Bloomberg and can hire a squad of New York City police to drag them around with you all the time. But for us ordinary citizens, is the Connecticut legislator then proposing that we get a tax credit each time we stop crime with our firearm?
So actually, there is a legislator, Senator Rob Sampson, that's put forward every single year. He puts forward a bill to offer tax credits on safes. We can't even get that passed. We can't even get a tax credit passed on a purchase of a safe for Connecticut residents because party lines.
Wow.
That's yeah. There's almost a spot where it's like, how do you? This kind of leads back into how do you fight back to this? And I think that circles back to you and being just newly named as the president of the Connecticut Citizens Defense League. How do you formulate a plan to fight back against this as newly elected Madam President?
Well, there's a number of things that, and it's not just on me, it's the entire board of CCDL, and we're definitely doing a lot more strategy than maybe has been done in the past. And this isn't something that I want to take credit for. It's something that started while Scott was still in the presidency of this organization, but we started the outreach program. So essentially what we've done is we now have regional managers and the state is divided up into 5 regions, and the regional managers then trickle down to area managers and then town captains, and then that way we are doing a better job of mobilizing when an issue comes up, even whether it's a town issue, if it's a candidate, whatever's going on. We had a proposed prohibition on town property in one of the towns, and gosh, we were able to get people out there and just fill the building, and of course it didn't pass. So it's mobilizing people, but we've had this kind of new phrase, and we keep saying it in CCDL, if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? And that's what we're really starting to say to gun owners. If not you, who's going to do it for you? And if you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? Because we're running out of time. So it's time for folks to really get involved.
Okay,
So,
and that makes a lot of sense. So how do they, and it's not just because the Polite Society podcast is nationwide. So what recommendation do you give to people that live in Connecticut and that live in any other state for how do they get involved in their state organization and what kind of matters, what counts?
So I think you need to look at states like California, New York, Connecticut. This is spreading like wildfire. So if you think that because you're in a safe state that it's not going to come to you, it is going to come to you. It's just a matter of time. So don't think that somehow anybody's exempted from this, because the lack of knowledge is what spreads this ignorance to gun issues. And so I think, connect with your state level organizations. There's tons of organizations out there. Connect with groups like the DC Project, for women that want to get involved. There's obviously now there's statewide initiatives in each and every state to take what's being done at the DC Project level to take it down to the state level. Find out who your state organizations are. Some states have several. Rhode Island, right next to us, they have 4 really strong pro-2A groups, and they are the smallest state in the country. So find out who these folks are and get involved in the fight.
I'll tell you, last night on Eye on the Target Radio, I had on Ohio is trying to pass this 17-point, it's red flags on steroids as a feel-good bill. And so I had this one of our state reps on talking about gun bills and how do you talk to your state legislators. And the one thing that she said was pick up the phone. that it is so much harder to ignore you if you call than it is if you email or you text, because they can just take that and make a stack. And is the stack a half-inch tall, or is the stack an inch tall? That kind of a thing. But if you call, somebody has to answer the call. Somebody has to take a message. You leave a number. They actually connect with the fact that you are a human being on the other side of that phone line. And so that was her best bit of advice, because it's so easy to just sit and jot an email at the end of a day. But she says it doesn't have nearly the weight and the heft.
Yep. And we've been doing sorry, go ahead, Amy, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Holly.
So in Connecticut, we have the way that our committee, our board is structured is that each person has sort of a role. So Ray Beavis is our legislative coordinator, and I tell you, this man does an amazing job. He gets out around the state, and he goes to gun clubs, and he goes to whatever group will have him, and we do what's called legislative workshops. And we have PowerPoints put together on how to write letters, how to make these phone calls, how to clearly state whether you oppose or support a bill, and why. So we've really done, our legislative workshops are packed. Every chair in every room is filled, and we're doing several a week, because I think people are starting to say, okay, I get it. If we don't engage with our legislators, we're not doing our jobs.
Holly, I just wanted to comment on two words that you said in your last sentence that stood out to me, and that was ignorance and initiative. And I think I think CCDL, just to give you guys credit, you guys really are a model organization when it comes to an organization that knows how to fight back, these proposed unreasonable gun bills, especially when it comes to hurting the gun owner. And I think one of the things that you mentioned about taking the initiative is it's time for gun owners to really, if they haven't taken any action or been outspoken about gun laws and gun rights, I think we're seeing the time now that it's important that we show, our legislators in Congress that we don't want these bills passing and the reason why. And I think the legislative workshops, I think that's a great idea. I never even thought of that. I think that's something that, we can initiate back in our states if we have that knowledge and we want to share that with people who, support gun rights, but maybe they don't know what to do.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that I think our side is not usually terribly good at is using emotion. The other side runs 100% on emotion, and we are so logical and fact-based all the time, so we come in as kind of cold. But, tell them your stories. Like, let them know why you feel the way you feel, and give them that human element. And our side just has historically not done a great job on that. And really, I think that they're people too, and that's where they remember you. It's because, it's the girl who had that happen, or it's the guy whose family went through this. Don't hesitate to share that. It carries a lot of weight.
Well, Holly, you just inspired me to write the article about Connecticut legislators who intend to disarm the poor. Thank you.
Yeah, have that. I will. I will, it's really interesting, and part of my testimony that I gave the other day is we filed a FOIA request earlier in January, and we were looking at the demographic of permit applications, and the fastest growing demographic of new gun permit applications in the state of Connecticut are African American women. And they're talking about how we need to fund urban violence issues, but at the same time are going to be pricing out low-income individuals in urban communities from being proficient in firearm handling. So you can't talk out about both sides of your mouth. If you don't have the facts to know who this growing population is, then you should really be looking into it before you start to propose legislation that's going to make it harder for them to be proficient.
Holly, we're up against the end of the break here. Sorry. Can I ask you to hang out for one more segment?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Folks, we're going to step aside to break. When we come back, we'll have more with Holly Sullivan. We'll get to that right after this. This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
Okay, and we're back. This is the Polite Society podcast powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. We're continuing with the interview with Holly Sullivan. Holly, one thing I wanted I thank you, by the way, for sharing that video with me of your testimony. And one thing that I want to go back to is how incredibly out of touch the people that are for the gun control, this specific HB 540 bill are. The lady was talking to you and said, well, did you see that we offered to exempt ammo that was sold at ranges? And then you popped up and said, yeah, there are like 5 ranges that sell ammo. That's just
so. Right. So, yeah, we definitely have some around the state. They're the public ranges where you can go in and buy ammunition, but most actual avid shooters are members of gun clubs. So you're not buying your ammunition at your gun club. You're going, you're opening the gate and you're putting your targets out. You're bringing your ammunition with you. So if her foundation for getting around the issue of people not being proficient because they're not able to practice is to buy ammunition at the range, that's typically only sold at the public ranges, which is, you go and you pay your $30 an hour to go shoot. Most shooters in this state, or a lot, at least probably the ones that are going through a lot of ammo, are members of gun clubs.
So hopefully we'll also allow gun clubs now to sell ammo.
Yeah, we could do that possibly, but that's
tax-free.
Not the solution. Yeah, right. So that's, and that's the other thing too is, these things have to go both ways. If you're talking about gun safety and measures to move forward gun safety issues, then look at what groups around the state are doing. Look at Project Child Safe and look at the organizations that are doing things that maybe aren't the things that they're thinking of doing. Just because it's not in their line of thought that, well, then what's next is we need to get rid of this and then we're going to get rid of that. It's not working, folks. Like, I should go grab the book of Connecticut firearms law. The book of Connecticut firearms law is like legit this thick. They're not working, guys. So if you're saying we've got this big problem to fix, then what's the point of more legislation if your big old book hasn't fixed the problem to begin with?
Well, and I think that's a very good point. The thing that we all of us have to keep in mind is the fact that they believe that this legislation is helping. And so everybody wants to stop bad things from happening. They want to stop active shooters. They want to stop crime. They just believe in going about it in a different way. And so once again, it's really hard for us to try to do emotion-based things because it's easy for them to pull out a heart-wrenching story of what happened to someone, and you're to quote Kathy Jackson, because of my gun, nothing happened today. It doesn't make a heart-wrenching story because I was able to protect myself. I was able to stop something bad from happening. But how do we go about causing them to see that their laws and legislation is not working? And I mean, did you see the Thomas Massey testimony just the other day where somebody said, well, I've never seen a spot where where someone got hurt in a gun-free zone. And he was like, he was, so he started quoting Nikki Gozer and the situation that happened with Ben. But they truly believe that if you make it gun-free, that everything's all kumbaya and it's all just fine.
Well, okay.
Yeah,
so what you're saying is we have to embarrass them. Okay, we can do that. Let's get on it. Disarming poor black women is not a way to keep them safe. Stop it. Okay, we can do that. I think you're absolutely right. And a phone call would be a great place to start.
You know, and unfortunately, sometimes it's also getting the media involved. Sometimes it's, you know, having the last word on a segment so that you leave the people thinking about it. Because make no mistake, especially in a state like this where they have the, I guess you could say the pull and the seats to pass what they want, right? So in Connecticut, all levels of the legislature are all under majority party. They can essentially pass whatever they want to do. But if their constituency is telling them, we're not for this, they're going to pause for a minute and they're going to think about it twice. So for the testimony for HB 5040, we had such a huge level of engagement that our ratio of gun owners were 100 to 1 of the anti. So you can go on the Connecticut, the General Assembly website, and you can look at the testimony submitted. And for every one anti that submitted testimony, 100 gun owners fired back. If you're not getting that level of traction, you can't expect to make a lot of change in a state like this. So you've really got to mobilize your people, be organized, and get those voices out there, because even with majority rule, they're going to think twice if their constituency is saying no.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So how exactly does CCDL mobilize that many people? Because we all know that gun owners are like, yeah, it's not going to happen in my state. I live in the best state. I live in the, you know, that's Virginia. That's not here. How do you get them off their sofa?
Well, you know, for us, when Sandy Hook happened, before Sandy Hook, it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? It was, we looked at our neighbors in New York and it was like, gosh, you have to register your guns and you have to do this. And then Sandy Hook happened and it was all of a sudden we had these restrictions too. And then you look at a state like Virginia, which nobody would have ever expected to have had a situation like this. And I think people are just getting to the point where, I hate to say it, but in some ways, I think Virginia's mobilized a lot of the country. I think gun owners are looking at a state like Virginia that says, you know, we always thought we were safe. And I think there's a lot of enthusiasm amongst gun owners. But we can't stress enough that you can sit at your keyboard and have all the enthusiasm you want, but it's not going to fix anything. We can't expect groups like the NRA to do it for us. You can't buy your freedom. You can't pay a membership due and expect that you're good. Well, I paid my annual membership or I paid my life membership. Nobody's doing it for you. So there's groups that can advocate, but there is absolutely no substitute for you connecting with your legislator directly and letting them know that you're fed up.
Okay, I think that's a good point. Here's the thing. The NRA doesn't say that their strength is the NRA employees. They say that their strength is the information that they can get out to the 5 million dues-paying members who then are a voting bloc or an active bloc, because those 5 million members have wives, they have kids, so that 5 million multiplies out. So in Virginia, I recently heard somebody say, well, where was the NRA? And I'm like, are you a member? There. Yeah. Are you a member? Then they were there. I know that there were some NRA employees there, and I know that there was information going there, but the story is you are the CCDL, you are the NRA, right. I am Buckeye Firearms. You know, we are our state organization in addition. That really is who we are. So it's not the organization, it's all the feet and all the bodies and all the minds and all the effort that are that organization.
Right.
Holly,
Nobody's going to do it for you. Sorry.
Holly, do you have any Second Amendment sanctuary counties or towns in Connecticut?
We do not. And I can explain to you why. We're different. I don't want to misspeak. We are one of the only states that do not have elected law enforcement. So in the 1990s, Connecticut got rid of all sheriffs. So we don't have any elected law enforcement. We have marshals that serve paperwork, but they're not elected. So it's been a real challenge because we see other states that are adopting sanctuaries. And in Connecticut, we have 169 towns. And in those 169 towns, historically, for years, they've been setting their own rules around firearm permit applications, who can carry what and where, and it makes it very hard on Connecticut gun owners. So you could be in one town and go into their public library and all is well, and then maybe you're driving and you're running errands with your little kid and you pull into another town and you go to take them to the restroom in the public library and you're breaking the law because you don't know that that town has a different set of rules than the town that you live in. So in Connecticut, we've been fighting for what's called preemption, which means we want to say that what's set at the state level has to happen in all 169 towns. And that's also happening with the permit application. So in the state of Connecticut, you first apply to your local town, and then from there you get your state permit. You get a temporary permit first from your town, and then you get your state permit. And what we found is that all 169 towns, many of them are doing different things, like interviewing your neighbors, wanting a letter from your boss, all kinds of crazy stuff where you go, well, why is it that my zip code dictates how hard it is for me to get my gun permit? So in the state of Connecticut, we've been fighting for preemption for a long time, where we want to say, hey, the state statute says in order to get your permit, you go through this process. And depending on your zip code should have no bearing on your constitutional right and ability to do so. So we've been fighting for preemption. So in this state, it's somewhat unique. If we were to demand sanctuaries, we have no county government to speak of. We have no elected law enforcement. And then we would be saying, we want the state law to preside over the permit application and laws, but only if it's in our favor. And ultimately, that wasn't the right course for us to go for sanctuaries, because then we'd be really saying we only want it if it's in our benefit, but not when it's not, if that makes sense.
So I wonder, Holly, you mentioned the preemption law, and I'm familiar with that because South Carolina is a preemption state, and it benefits South Carolina because just like you were saying, it for permit holders especially, I know that my, let's say, South Carolina state permit, there's not a town or a city I can go to within the state of South Carolina that will give me another set of rules or laws that I have to abide by as a permit holder. But I wonder if that if the fact that the preemption would backfire in states that, you know, have those sanctuary cities. I never thought about that before you said that. Like, I wonder if a state that is preempted, or if a state that, or am I making sense? I just wonder if that would backfire in those states that have those two-way sanctuary cities. Would that backfire, because that does open up to where a town or a county or a city can have different ordinances versus state law?
Right, and what's different where you are, Amy, because you have sheriffs, you have some degree of independence from the state government, from your capital. So your elected law enforcement can listen to the people. We don't have that in Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. So in Connecticut, we have no sheriffs. It's all local town police, but the governor would have the ability to just put resident state troopers wherever they want. And we have no elected law enforcement. So we have absolutely no representation in law enforcement that holds any water if we were to push back.
We've got just about a minute left of this segment, Holly, and I'm sorry to be cutting this so short, but the clock really does rule. I'm looking on your website right now for CCDL, and you do have upcoming events, legislative workshops coming up, and I'm hoping these are going to be very well attended. If somebody's interested in attending these, is there a cost? Do you just sign up? Do you just go? What's...
No, there's never a cost. It's free to be a member of CCDL. You just go to our website, become a member. You don't have to live in the state of Connecticut to be a CCDL member. If you just want to follow what's happening in our state so that you can be prepared for your state, we welcome you to do so. And then anybody who's in the state of Connecticut or nearby, please feel free to come to one of our legislative workshops. This is a service that we offer for anybody interested.
All right, that website for everybody is ccdl.us. Very simple. Holly, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. It's been an interesting interview, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Folks, we do need to step aside to break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about a bill in Illinois, or a lawsuit, actually, that the SAF has filed against Illinois that would be a great benefit to me and a lot of truckers. It opens up the reciprocity with more than just 4 states. We'll be back with that story and our other news right after this.
Firearm Safety Institute is one of Northwest Illinois' premier firearm training companies. They provide superior firearm training to all levels of shooters. Gary Doherty has been a trainer and concealed weapons permit holder for many years. While living in Nevada, he carried legally and has the experience to train you to do the same. Firearms Safety Institute offers a wide range of courses designed to meet the personal needs of both seasoned shooters and those that are new to the world of firearms. If you are looking to apply for the Illinois Concealed Carry License, Firearms Safety Institute can provide you with the professional training that meets the state's requirements. Gary accommodates classes of all sizes and can provide individualized instruction if that is your personal preference. He's happy to work with you and your friends to arrange private classes and will come to your location and work around your schedule. If you would like to get your Illinois CCW or increase your firearm knowledge or skills, go to firearmsafetyinstitute.com to start the conversation. Mention the Polite Society podcast and receive a 10% discount on your training. Remember, that's firearmsafetyinstitute.com. Get your Illinois CCW today.
Hey, and welcome back to the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. This is our news segment, and if we haven't put Monty to sleep, we've got a news story here about the SAF suing Illinois. Monty, are you there, dude?
Thank you, Paul. I am here, and I am wide awake. The case of Culp versus Raoul has been brought against the state of Illinois by the Second Amendment Foundation, the Illinois State Rifle Association, Illinois Carry, and several private individuals. A friend of the court brief has been submitted by Missouri Attorney General Eric S. Schmidt. It has been joined by 18 Second Amendment-friendly state attorneys general. The suit alleges that citizens of 45 states are being denied their Second Amendment rights by the state of Illinois due to the lack of reciprocity with those states. In addition to the reciprocity issue, Illinois does not allow non-residents to apply for a carry permit. By denying concealed carry to those law-abiding and qualified persons in a discriminatory and arbitrary manner and prohibiting them from applying for an Illinois concealed carry permit, regardless of their qualification, they are denying the petitioner's rights covered under the Second Amendment. Alan Gottlieb, the chairman of the Second Amendment Foundation, said, quote, "We are grateful to the 18 attorneys general for joining the amicus on behalf of the residents of their respective states. The right to bear arms does not end at the Illinois state line, and untold numbers of citizens from other states have occasion to travel to or through Illinois, and they should not be expected to leave their right to self-defense at the border," end quote. The 7th U.S. Circuit recently affirmed the state's restrictions by citing the inability to keep tabs on non-residents' arrest and commitment records as a reason to deny them of their rights. This ruling conflicts with D.C. versus Heller and McDonald versus the City of Chicago. Only Arkansas, Mississippi, Texas, and Virginia have been approved to have their residents apply for the Illinois carry permit. This case was distributed to the justices for conference Friday, February 21st, 2020.
What makes this case particularly interesting is that you can be a firearms instructor without being an Illinois resident. For example, you're a firearms instructor in the military, you're assigned to a base in Illinois. You train servicemen all day long. You train civilians after hours, but you cannot apply for an Illinois carry permit, nor does Illinois recognize your out-of-state permit. Amanda.
I mean, I'm looking at this, and it's really their argument from the seventh U.S. Circuit Court that they have the inability to keep track of non-residents and all of this. I mean, we're in an information age where you put something in the computer and it is across the country. So I just want to say bunk, because that's another 4-letter word that is socially acceptable. But Gary, what do you think?
You know what? I don't know if that's socially acceptable. Bunk. I'm gonna let you slide. I'm really happy to see this case brought. I mean, we've got Second Amendment Foundation. If you're not a member, please be a member.
It's $10 for a year. Maybe it's 15 now. I think the lifetime is still $150 for a lifetime membership.
Yeah. But please do that. It keeps you informed. It gives them the power to fight all of these cases, not only statewide. I mean, Illinois has got a ton of fights, but nationwide, they do a great job of staying on top of these cases. They've got lawsuits Somebody should find out how many lawsuits they have going right now, or how many they had last year, because I'm sure the number is astronomical.
The SAF, the last time I talked to Alan, it was 32 active cases.
And 4 are at the Supreme Court right now.
Yeah. I mean, talk about fighting for our rights.
Mm-hmm.
You got 5 million NRA members. The power that the Second Amendment Foundation would have, if they had half that many members, it would be awesome. Anyway, point back is Illinois. Like I'm jumping on what Amanda said. You're right. You can't keep track of people's arrest records. Oh, please stop. Right? What silliness.
Well, Gary, can we go a step further? The Seventh Circuit just admitted it's difficult to follow non-residents. They do so at best imperfectly. But they also then admit, they confess that they can't follow criminals at all.
Well, yeah, you're right, but I thought you were going another direction.
Well, take me there.
If they're doing a background check through the FBI, then they can't file local residents' criminal records either.
Thank you.
Right?
All I could think of is non-residents, non-citizens. Maybe we need a wall around Chicago. I don't know.
With the guard towers facing in,
Greater Idaho extends all the way down to Springfield.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Any more conversation on this? Other than I'm going to throw my personal bent on this one as a truck driver, and Gary can attest to this. When we very first were going to bring Gary on the show, he said, "I'll train you, man. I'll help you get your Illinois CCW. You bring some ammo. Bring the money you got to get for the state permits and stuff. I won't charge you anything to train you." And whoopsie, you don't live in one of these 4 special states where you can get an out-of-state permit. And so we couldn't do it. It would be a blessing to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of truck drivers that drive through that state that have concealed carry permits. It would be a boon to the state because, once again, right now, as we drive through, it's legal to carry inside the truck. You have to put it away. Can't step outside. So what do? We drive straight through. I don't stop and buy fuel. I don't stop and get lunch. I don't stop in Illinois. It would be a great boon for the state of Illinois economically if they'd let those of us with CCW stop there. So,
Oh yeah.
all right, we're gonna go off to gun quotes, and Rob, you are Johnny on the spot because it wasn't there a few minutes ago. Since you put it in there, I'm gonna let you read the gun quote.
Just another service I provide. A businessman cannot force you to buy his product. If he makes a mistake, he suffers the consequences. A bureaucrat, in contrast, forces you to obey his decisions, whether you agree with him or not. And if the bureaucrat makes a mistake, you suffer the consequences. If he fails, he passes the loss onto you. That's Ayn Rand.
All right, folks.
Hang on, everybody. We'll be back with our guest, Holly Sullivan.
Well, we actually already interviewed Holly.
All right. I owe you money. No free coffee.
We'll be right back with our DGU segment right after this.
In 1928, Germany required its citizens to register their firearms, making possible Hitler's 1938 Nazi Weapons Act, disarming all Jews. Now ask yourself, what is the real consequence of registration? All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand. Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, America's aggressive civil rights organization. jpfo.org.
Hey, and welcome back. This is the Defensive Gun Use segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Now, these discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The Defensive Gun Use segment is intended as information, not as training, and as always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations, although they should be. Okay, Monty, our first one coming up is out of Alabama. What do we got going on, man?
Well, I see Amy put her name beside it. Does Amy want to read that story?
It doesn't matter. I'm used to doing that, so I went ahead and just put my name there. I'll go ahead and read it since
Go ahead.
already. Okay. Our first DGU comes out of Mobile County, Alabama. Deputies responded to 2 domestic violence calls that both stated they heard a gunshot and a woman crying for help. They found Miss Johanna Harbison outside the home bleeding from her head and her 51-year-old boyfriend with a fatal gunshot wound to the chest. Ms. Harbison told authorities that he struck her in the face with an AK-47 during a physical altercation in the home. So she armed herself with a 9mm handgun and defended herself. She was taken to a local hospital for treatment and has not been arrested. However, the case will go to a grand jury.
Yeah, the question of, well, he only hit her. Why did she have to shoot him? Getting hit in the head with the butt of a gun can kill you, has killed a lot of people. That is a lethal tool. If it doesn't kill you, it can easily render you incapable of defending yourself. And Amy, I'd like to hear you talk about some of your students. There's usually some history here. This probably wasn't the first attack. Anybody, once we go through some of these stories, I hope someone will comment about what you tell your domestic violence students to do. Well,
Every time this comes up on the justification of use of deadly force, what justifies a person claiming that they thought their life was in danger. And there's 3 things I always tell my students, and it's opportunity, capability, and intent. So do you, as the person who was attacked, feel that your attacker had the opportunity, capability, and intent to physically disable or maim you or kill you? And if that answer is yes, then you're justified in using up to deadly force to defend yourself. And typically this sounds like with domestic violence, there may have been history there. There was something that precluded this event that, she felt that her life was in danger. So, but anytime a person is in your presence with a firearm, whether it be an AK-47 or a handgun, that's, you don't know what their next step is. She may have felt that at the time her life was in danger, so she did what she had to do.
Amy, I just realized we have a local expert You were taught to hit people in the head with the butt of a rifle.
Yes, there's actually 3 different ways that, like 3 correct ways to do it. But yes, so getting hit in the head with the butt of a rifle can, like you said, can permanently disable you.
Well, there have been cases that people have been charged with murder for striking somebody with their hand, and punching them leads to death. So I would certainly think getting butt stroked with an AK-47 constitutes a lethal threat.
Well, right, Paul, but somebody's willing to hit you with a gun? What's to make you think that they're not about to use the other end?
Oh, certainly.
Exactly.
Certainly. Having it and being aggressive, period, is a lethal threat. And, you know.
And frankly, using anything, this is back to an engineering term, force times lever arm. If you've got something that's bigger and you can get a swing to it, it doesn't matter whether if it's the butt of the gun, the handle of the broom, anything that you can get a big swing, and then think about how fast the end of that is going and how much additional heft and weight there is over and above that the aggressor's just initial hand.
One other thing I just thought of is most there are some interesting people out there that modify them so they don't have, but most AKs have a very hefty wooden stock as compared to an AR. My AR stock is very light.
Right.
There's going to be a lot more mass at the end of that wooden stock that once it gets moving, it's going to do. Just come to think of it, if I've got to be butt stroked with either one, an AR or an AK, I'll take the AR.
If you butt struck me with the AR, I'm afraid that you're going to catch the flying half of a 9mm.
There you go.
That's just where this goes. Your mom says to be careful who you hang with, and be careful what you do.
And always wear clean underwear.
Yeah, Mom had some rules. So
it's just go
ahead.
No, it's just unfortunate this is actually going to go to a grand jury.
Right.
They don't have better laws in Alabama to protect someone who uses a firearm in self-defense, because it's going to cost her a fortune in lawyers. I mean, the old story. A good prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich. So it's probably going to get indicted because they don't get to hear the other side of the case, and it's just ugly.
Gary, thank you. What the old he didn't mean it argument? He promises to never do it again. You say, great, that's awesome. Since he promises to never do it again, make sure you log this event with the police, because if it never happens again, that record will disappear. And if it happens again and you defend themselves, you've got a record. It wasn't the first time. Amanda, what do you say?
I'm going to bet that he's never going to do it again.
In this case, she fixed it. Yep.
That's, because I think you guys are all right when you said that there's probably already, it's an escalation situation.
Oh yeah.
There's already, she had reason to act the way she did because things had happened before, things that had caused her to believe that this was going down a road that nobody was going to recover from. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I think we've kicked this one around. What's our next one, Monty?
Tulsa, Oklahoma. A homeowner and 2 residents were at home on a Saturday morning, approximately 11 a.m., when a man kicked in the front door. None of the occupants in the house knew the man, who continued through the house, kicking in doors and threatening to kill everyone in the house. The homeowner retrieved his rifle, fired 1 shot, and struck the assailant in the torso. Emergency responders pronounced the man DOA on the scene. The case has been ruled self-defense.
I'm going to jump in first on this one.
For sure.
Good on the guy for having a rifle and using a one-shot stop. Absolutely. But I'm going to go back to, if you've got guns in the house, how about putting one on your hip? He'll get in the front door. He threatens once. You've got the
You're not
tools.
saying Pogo, are you?
I'm saying pogo, dude. I'm saying pogo. I'm stealing it right out from under you. Yeah, pants on, gun on. I'm glad he had a rifle. I'm glad he was able to get to it and stop the threat. But I think he might have been able to do it before the guy kicked in other doors if he'd had a gun on his hip.
See, I, on the other hand, am like, well, if he's in my house, whether I have one on my hip or not, and, because your pistol's really only to get you to your carbine, and in my case, to the kitchen shotgun, because that's what's going to stop him, and it's going to stop him with one shot.
I agree. I agree to an extent, but having that gun up in the ready, guy sees a gun, guy may turn around, and you can be putting shots on target while you're moving to your rifle or shotgun, as the case may be. If there's a deadly threat, deal with it as quickly as you can, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. We've had so many stories of people who were getting the snot beat out of them, and then they finally got to the gun.
No, I don't disagree, because the best place to have a gun is wherever you are, not wherever you left it. So,
yeah. I'm sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
I think you guys have all made a serious confession. If you're fighting your way to your long gun with your handgun, and you make it to your long gun, you need to go to the range some more.
Not necessarily.
Well, you're right, Amanda. I don't know how big your house is.
If I have time, you're right.
And there may be more than one of them that I'm having to shoot.
Okay, we got to talk to you about your doors. I get it.
That's a great point.
Otherwise, I'm going to... Obviously, Amanda's house is the party house in the neighborhood.
Yes. There's that. No, there was just a story about 8 guys coming into somebody's house. Didn't you just see that? It was like in the last week.
Yeah, where on it all the time.
Didn't we have one where it was 6 guys? This kid buys a car at an auction. It happens to be the car from the neighborhood drug dealer who gets it confiscated. And then 6 guys break into the house because, well, aren't you now the local drug dealer? No, I just got the car. Yeah, yikes.
Yikes.
Yeah, 6, 8 guys. Well, I've got 30 rounds in my primary magazine in the AR.
You need to make a good first impression. I like it.
All right. That does do it for our DGU segment. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, we're going to wrap the show up. We'll get to that right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by Concealment Solutions. Jason Christensen makes the most comfortable inside the waistband holster on the market, bar none. The Black Mamba. Some of the other products offered are the Sidewinder outside the waistband holster and Python gun belts. Every product that Concealment Solutions makes has unsurpassed craftsmanship that shows in the fit and finish of the product. Visit concealmentsolutions.com to view all of the products available, and you can get 10% off your order when you enter the promo code POLITICS in the promo code box at checkout. That's concealmentsolutions.com.
Hey, welcome back to the final segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. This is an odd position for me. Normally, we, in the past, have asked for emails, and if you want to email us, it's on air at politicsandguns.com. Please do. If you want to email us, again, on air at politicsandguns.com. I prefer it if you, on the live Facebook feed, go ahead and send us a message while we're recording. There were a few people, mainly Kevin Sona, thank you, that did when I was doing my opening monologue. And then crickets! Folks, in order for it to be an interactive show, you've got to interact. I hope you have things to say about this. And in the future, we've got just a few minutes left of this show, but in the future, just go ahead and comment on the video as we're recording, and we will get your comments up, and we'll react to them on the air. So let's go ahead and move off to...
but if you can't, still get us those emails.
Oh, and Susan says, keep in mind, she still has recipes she can give out.
Yeah, but Susan's an awesome cook.
Oh God, ever?
That is not exactly a threat.
No, but the recipes. When that was a joke going around, we were looking up recipes for gach. For the Star Trek fans know what that is. We were looking up recipes for lutefisk and really haggis, just really vile things. And the one, I believe the one thing we did one time, read a recipe on the air. We didn't get any email. We didn't get any listener feedback. I want to say it was for vegan tofu meatballs.
Icky.
So
now, did Scott stay because we threatened to give the recipe to haggis, or did he leave because we threatened to give it?
We'll never know. Ask him. It could be either way. All right, Rob. Normally at this point we would ask you to talk about what's been going on over at the at your blog. But what I'm going to do, because I'm going to steal your thunder a little bit, I'm going to say that John, our co-host, he's doing a business trip this week, couldn't join us, but please do go check out his articles at onlygunsandmoney.com. Rob, what have you been doing at Slowfax, man?
I wrote one article this week about supporting constitutional carry in Louisiana. I'm so thankful that friends reposted that article from my site to Facebook and from AmmoLand to Facebook. I wrote another article called Gun Owners Cause Peace, the amazing experiment in Richmond, Virginia, that proved the media wrong. The media said guns cause crime. Well, we conducted a massive public experiment. We put 30 to 50,000 armed individuals on the capital area in Richmond, Virginia, and crime dropped. Usual criminals decided they had better plans that day, and none of the gun owners were arrested. In fact, the only arrest I could find for that entire demonstration that morning was from a counter protesters. That shouldn't surprise us. Almost everyone on this podcast has stood in a room with 20 to 30,000 armed individuals at one time. We've done that dozens of times in our life. My articles are up at Clash Daily, at AmmoLand, and at my blog, slowfax.wordpress.com. Again, I'd like to thank the readers at AmmoLand. They reposted one of my articles about the abusive gun laws in New York 11,000 times.
That's awesome.
Yes, you're reminding me, Rob. I just went to a Trump rally, which was permitted. You have to have a permit in Illinois rally. So if it is a government permitted activity, I'm allowed to carry. So, of course, I was disarmed. Thought about it the whole day. Here's what's happening.
Well, pretty much if you go someplace where the president is, they sort of force that regardless.
Sure.
On the other hand, at the last NRA annual meeting, I'm sitting there loaded to the hilt, sore on my buddies, and Don Jr. walks right in front of us.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Yeah. Well, and Senior President Trump did speak. They didn't disarm the whole city. They didn't disarm the whole convention. They just disarmed the room he was in.
The room he was in, right.
All right. And Rob, one real quick sidetrack. I thought Louisiana had constitutional carry.
No.
Oh. Okay.
We just recently changed our laws for the better to improve church carry, but nope, not yet.
Now they do have, isn't it? I'm trying to think of the legal term. They did pass a law where it had any laws relating to guns had to pass strict scrutiny. Isn't that was 3 or 4 or 5? It was before you moved there, I think. But I do remember that happening.
I don't know. That's great.
So, all right. Well, we're going to go ahead and remind you to please join the Facebook listeners group. If you are a Facebook user, just search Facebook for Polite Society Podcast listeners. We had a person that I haven't gotten to yet, but did request, I bet you Susan has, did request to become a member of the group even as we started recording today. It's growing all the time. It's a great place for people to interact and talk. And I'm not in there as much as I should be, but I'm trying to get in there more often. That does wrap it up another episode of the Polite Society Podcast. I'd like to thank Holly Sullivan for joining us tonight. So for Amy, Tracy, Bell, Kat, Dana, Gary, John, Rachel, Susan, Monty, and Rob.
Until next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
It all went away.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.